A very warm welcome to all the people attending this webinar today, organized by Analytics Magazine in association with Praxis Business School. And today's session topic is solving the hunger for data science skills in the post-COVID world and why it is the best time to become a data scientist. I am Sejati Das, the Associate Editor of Analytics India magazine, and I'll be the moderator for today's session. To give you guys a brief background, we all are aware of how the COVID pandemic has brought the societies all over the world to a halt. But we also know that it has sped up massive global digitalization, with businesses looking for ways to reinvent themselves and prepare themselves for future shocks. This has led to a deluge of data generation for companies to harness it and bring out insights in order to remain competitive. This has put the work of a data scientist in the spotlight and brought in the massive demand for people with skills who can make out the sense of data. To understand the impact of pandemic on the demand for data science and the data science as a skill, and how one can leverage this opportunity to build a career in data science with hot and advanced skills, we have organized this discussion with our esteemed speakers. So today we have with us Sudipta Ghosh, the partner leader of data and analytics and industrial products at PwC. He comes with a 20 plus years of consulting experience in the field of data and analytics, as well as enterprise performance management. And he has been the instrumental and key to successfully setting up the analytics practice at PwC. Along with him, we have Professor Charanpreet Singh, the founder director at Praxis Business School. Professor Singh comes with a 30 plus of years of experience in organizations like British Oxygen, Tata Steel, PwC, and HP, and has been the driving force for behind the highly successful data science program at Praxis Business School. So, gentlemen, welcome to this discussion.
Thank you.
So, please, Sudipta, hi once again, welcome. Welcome, Professor Charanpreet.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
So, like I said, this COVID pandemic has definitely, impacted the global digitalization. So, Sudipta, we would like to understand what do we mean by these data science skills, and why do you think there is a hunger for them?
So I say that data science is a concept which sits on a three-legged stool. The first leg is all about data, the world of data. It requires you to understand the data. It requires you to understand the gaps in the data. And it also requires you to have a slightly detective mindset when you are looking at the data, because you have to cover it from all different angles. And I almost get reminded of whenever I read Arthur Conan Doyle or I read, Agatha Christie, that how a detective looks at a situation as nothing but a set of data and then draws the conclusion from the data to fit a hypothesis, not the other way around. Right? That is where the importance of data lies in. So we need to be at the heart of it, a very intuitive, good understanding of the data itself. If you have that, majority, half the job is done, probably more than half the job is done. Right? That's the first leg. The second leg is about the fact that gone are the days when we are talking about few rows in Excel and few columns in Excel. We are talking about terabytes, petabytes of data. How do you even handle so much of data? You need technology, right? How do you even visualize the data? You need technology. How do you transform the data? You need technology. You need to write code. You need to have an understanding of the technology. You may not necessarily need to build tools for yourself, but you have to be very savvy in using the tools which are being prepared or the platforms which are being prepared. So that requires a solid understanding or a very good understanding and familiarity with the technology, particularly the technology around writing code, technology around using tools, technology around the basic constructs of how you store the data, how do you transform the data, how do you visualize the data. So that is the second skill which is very important for a data scientist. simply because we are talking about huge amount of data, huge complexity. If it was as simple as using an Excel sheet and doing all your pivot tables, I would not have said this is important, right? The third leg, which in my opinion, not the least, even though I'm saying it at the last, is what I call as the business knowledge or the understanding of the business context. So remember that we are trying, it is not an intellectual exercise only. It might be an intellectual exercise, but it is not only an intellectual exercise. It has to be done in the context of a relevant business problem for a specific situation in the business context, or in the, if it's not business, then any, a normal context, if you are trying to solve a problem. So we need to understand the context. I'll give you one example of that context. So for example, if I'm building, say, a demand forecasting model, if I'm building a demand forecasting model, I need to know what are some of the variables which are important for me to determine the cause for a demand. So if I'm doing it, say, for a four-wheeler, or a automobile manufacturing company, I would have to know that a festive season plays a very important role in terms of the demand spike. I also will have to know that the 31st of December as a date is very critical, because that's when most of the discounts are given and people actually buy more, right? However, the moment I switch from a four-wheeler to a two-wheeler, I also need to look at the monsoon forecast. I also need to look at when the crops will be harvested, because that is the time when the farmers will have the disposable income, and that is when they will buy the motorbikes and the scooties and all that, because the demand for a two-wheeler is driven by the rural demand. Right? Now, all of these nuances you have to understand from the business context, and that is why this is the third critical aspect. When you have to understand how do I. It is not just an exercise of numbers. You have to understand the story behind the number, which is where you need to understand the context behind the number, which is where you have to have the business understanding of the problem and the nuances thereof. Your life becomes a lot simpler if you understand the business nuances. And hence, it's a combination of understanding of the data, understanding of the technology, and understanding of the business. And if you have all the three things together, your stool has the right foundation, and you can be in the right path for a great data scientist.
Correct. So that gives us a very well-rounded view of what industry is currently looking for, or what is the industry perspective. Coming to Professor Singh, you've been in the education space for such a long time. What is your view on it? What are these data science skills everybody's talking about? And why do you think there's a demand in the industry?
Yeah, I think good evening, everyone. And I think with his usual proficiency, Sudipto has covered it very, very nicely. But yeah, I would add, I would look at it from a educator's perspective. What have I seen? We started this program in 2011. We called it business analytics. Then we rechristened it data science along the way. And so there has been a huge change. Although at a high level, what Sudipto is saying is still valid. It's about data and technology and business. But I think all three have undergone a huge change. And so it's a moving target, actually, if you ask me. You still need to understand data, but we moved from a statistics, econometrics, and data warehousing kind of curriculum to an advanced machine learning, deep learning, and data visualization. And so the technology component, big data, the technology component has really gone up. So I think that it's a learning for life. Actually, you just need to keep adopting. The other thing I think fundamentally, and this is where I completely agree with Sudipto, is the fundamental skill hasn't changed. Do you have the skill to identify and understand a business problem? Do you have the skill to define it? Do you have the skill to convert it into a data problem? Then do you have the skill to understand what data is required and how to get it and how to make it analyzable? Do you have the skill to analyze and then present your finding and then give that what we call, this is a bit of a jargon, a meaningful actionable insight to the business, because at the end of the day the business is paying you a lot for the ecosystem and the data scientists to do all of that. So can you make the business more competitive? Can you give it a new business model? Can you make it do better things by doing all that? So that skill I think remains the same. I think the tools, technologies, I think just keep changing and becoming in one sense much more complex, but in another sense much more effective, right? And on the hunger side, I think since this is complex, everybody doesn't do it. I'm not saying everybody cannot do it, but maybe everybody doesn't do it. And the way things have moved, the demand has moved faster than the supply. It's only now that a lot of educational institutes have got into it. Yeah, earlier there were very few. So that gap is where the hunger is. The appetite for data scientists is going up really fast. But the speed with which people are training themselves and getting into this career, I think, is still there is a lag. So, which is great news actually for aspirants.
And I'll
Correct.
just add one more point to what Professor said. See, because it is a skill which requires a lot of diverse disciplines, it is not very easy to build skills in all the three areas, and hence there will be a natural way in which your number of data scientists cannot go beyond a certain point, because you will not be able to have mastery in all the three areas which we spoke about. On the other hand, organizations are now realizing that data is an asset, just like any other asset. It's just that the asset is not counted in the balance sheet, but it is an asset. And it is also an asset which gives a sustained competitive advantage. Your competitors can copy everything about you, but the only thing they cannot copy is your data which you have collected over the years and your insights about your own data. And that is where you are seeing the platform economies or the big techs, they are going leaps and bounds in terms of their valuations and all that, only on the strength of the insights which they generate from the data. So on one hand, your demand is going up and it will go up. On the other hand, the supply side is a little more complex, because you still need people with a diverse set of skills, and hence it's not easy for organizations to build that or people to build that. So you will have this imbalance for some time, at least till other technologies develop. And as very rightly pointed out by Professor, this is a great opportunity for aspirants, because it means there will be a huge demand, and this is a great opportunity for you to build a career because of this supply demand mismatch.
Correct. Very nicely pointed out. And this brings me to my next question, which is, Sudipta, how this COVID pandemic that we're all dealing with, has changed this hunger or has increased this hunger for businesses?
We're just discussing about it before the session started, and I was kind of trying to think about what we used to do before the pandemic or before the COVID set in. And we probably had all the capabilities, all the tools and everything, but still we were not very digital in our mindset, so to say. For a meeting, for example, I will go and travel to meet my customers or my clients and do a meeting. For the work which people do in their offices, they will come to the office and do the work physically sitting in front of their bosses, right? Now, all of that has completely changed. For the last 1 year, people are not going to offices, at least those who do not have to. I mean, the essential services you still have to, but in our field, at least in the IT domain, services domain, a lot of work is getting done completely sitting from home, including this lecture which I'm giving you, sitting from home, and you might be hearing a bit of a background noise, which my son is, screaming at the top of his voice. Apologies for the same. On the other hand, you would also find that even from a customer or from a business standpoint, they are now realizing that this is going to be the new normal. So what we could not achieve with so much of change management and so much of technology and everything, it just got done in a very short span of time because of the crisis which came because of this pandemic. Now, what has happened? There are two things which has happened, which has made our lives a little more interesting, I would say. The first thing is that organizations are now capturing more and more digital data. What I mean by that is that your face-to-face interactions, your manual transactions, your things which you used to do, that is getting transformed into a bit of a process because people are remote, so they need to connect with each other. In fact, when I was talking to one of my clients, they said that as far as my procurement is concerned, I do not want anything to be done verbally. Everything has to be done through a process, everything has to be done through a workflow. Now what that means is that whether it is you are buying a small ticket size like a pen, or you are buying a very expensive equipment for your organization, everything is going through that digital process, because that is what that is how you are going to actually do the business. You can't meet anybody, right, or physically meet anybody. So your processes are getting digitized because of the fact that you are forced to work in a contactless manner in many situations, whether it is your customers, whether it is your suppliers, or whether it is your operations or your supply chain or whatever, right? So that one fundamental change is that organizations are now capturing more data. So there is more data now. Anyways, that is first. Second thing, which is also a slightly subtle thing, which I'm realizing, is that in the past, and from PwC, we had done a lot of research in the past where we wanted to find out whether CEOs actually use data for taking decisions. And I still remember I came up, I kind of was part of the team which co-authored that report. It said it's a 50-50 chance. 50% of the time, the CEO will probably take a decision based on the gut feel. That was 5 years back. If you ask the same question now, the CEO or the decision maker cannot trust their gut feel anymore. Your gut feel only works if your environment remains similar to what you have seen in the past. You cannot trust your judgment anymore. You cannot trust your gut feel anymore because the situation is so very different. People are scared. They cannot just say, oh, I did this 2 years back and hence I'll do the same thing now. Not going to work at all. So the only recourse they have is to look at the data. The only recourse they have is to see if the data is telling them something which they don't know and then take a decision. So the second thing which has happened is that there is now a significant reliance on using data for taking decisions, not because of any newfound love for data science, but because they don't have any other option. So if you look at the supply side, there is more data which is captured. If you look at the demand side, where people are using data to take decisions, I would say the combination of these two factors since the COVID pandemic has had caused a significant change in the behavior and the demand and the usage of data analytics as a discipline and data science as a profession.
Correct. Very nicely explained. I hope the attendees got a big understanding how this has happened in the new normal. Professor Singh, want to understand the same thing. What do you think? Do you think this COVID has spiked up this demand for data science skills?
Yeah, I will, just add a little to what Shudipta said, and then I will move on to what we have experienced on ground, because we are like at that edge, where we see what's happening in the market. So I think fundamentally, the whole data science thing has happened because of the internet, right? Because there are footprints of, the data generation in real sense. So the more you do in the digital place, the more is the data. I mean, which is the point that Shudipta was making, okay? And I think that has gone up tremendously, right? And also I think business, I think one more thing which has happened is disrupting business models. So not just the COVID thing, but also so many things. So when you look at an Uber, it's not an improvement on the yellow cab. It's a completely different model. It just kind of eliminates competition, right? So that has, people are realizing that if not working with my data, my business could be disrupted by something new which I never dreamt of. So there is a fear of missing out, huge. I mean, we used to see that long time back when people used to start spending money when the television had come, that if I'm not present on TV, I'll probably miss out. So everybody started advertising. I think something like that has started happening now. And at Praxis, what we saw this year is very interesting. I'll just take a minute on this because, we started in 2020, the batch had joined in January, and the lockdown happened in March. Everything was okay till then. And suddenly we had to move from classroom to online. So we also, so we also created a lot of data because of that, obviously, right? Okay. But what happened was there was massive apprehension. Are we going to be able to learn? Even if we learn, are we going to get a job? Is anybody going to hire? because the GDP growth, I mean, we can't even call it growth. It started plummeting actually, right? And there was news of such huge job losses. So in that circumstance, we were hoping that because of the digitalization that's happening, maybe this will not happen to the data science domain. But the test was when the placement started, and we were also pretty scared what's going to happen. We got two things happened. One is we got a lot of companies to hire. The second is the diversity of the kind of companies that came to hire became more. There was more diverse companies, which means they were the usual suspects who were hiring every year because they were already data driven. But what we saw is a lot of companies now realize that I need to start my own data science team. I need to also get into this because there is no other option, as Shudipta said. So suddenly we started having brands that they were seeking people like us out. That do you have people that we can hire because we are starting. So that is, I think, one thing and so we had a larger number of companies, and they had appetite and um, different profiles also, right? So I think that I just got the feeling that it is going to become more mainstream. It's not going to be a good to have thing. I think it's going to be a must have thing. And if it becomes a must have thing, the demand is just going to shoot. I think we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg, and the second wave has happened. And I think yeah, I think this is so I just feel that this whole digital thing is got accelerated, and it's going to go the same way. That's what I feel.
Correct. We will quickly take a small break to actually answer a few questions that have we've been getting on our Q&A tab. One question which is quite relevant, what we were discussing just now. Dibyajyoti Mohanty is asking, as it is evident that technology and businesses are embedded in all walks of life, it has become a necessity to engineer the raw data in order to run successful business. So, is it safe to say that even traditional roles like marketing and sales are going to be aspects of engineering in the future, owing to the large number of data involved in these fields?
Absolutely.
Shudipta, you want to go first?
Absolutely. So, no, absolutely. And great question also. So, I'll give you a few examples. So, we always knew that sales and marketing as a function was probably the most advanced function in terms of usage of statistics. If you see that in any business, before anything else was used, sales and marketing was probably the most advanced one when they did all the analysis on the data, the customer data, the focus group data, the A/B testing when new products are being launched, all of that. So sales and marketing, as an example, if I take, was always a little bit of a forefront in terms of the usage of data and analytics than many other parts of the business. Now, if I take that concept to the next level, I would say that if I am trying to be a good marketeer, for example, I need to be, and in my heart, a good data scientist, because I have to understand the data. I have to see what my customers are saying. I have to figure out where I can position. And I may not know everything about data science, but at least I need a team of data scientists in my organization as part of my sales and marketing who can provide me with the right insights, which I can then take a decision on and execute. So the role of a traditional marketeer is actually changing a lot, where instead of looking at more from a overall theory perspective, in fact, I was very fortunate to hear a live session from Philip Kotler, who I consider as, everybody considers as the guru of marketing, and we all studied his book, in our college days. So I had the fortune to listen to him live, and he was actually saying that AI is going to completely transform the way marketing is done. And he gave a few examples also, which we all know of. So I'm going to kind of, if I take a bit of a leaf from what he said, I'm going to say that, well, your every function, not just sales and marketing, whether you call it finance, whether it is procurement, whether it is HR, whether it is operations, everything, there will be a transformation in the expectation of how people do their jobs. And in core organizations, they will need people with a very good understanding of data, very good understanding of what insights can be generated from the data. And they may have some outsourcing being done by consultants or to other third party, but this could be so fundamental a thing that it cannot be fully outsourced. The organization still will have to build some capacity, some capability in-house to ensure continuity and understanding of that data. So I would say going forward, this particular skill will be fully embedded across multiple functions, in the business.
Professor Singh,
Yeah,
please.
very quickly. I think absolutely right and great question. So I'll just tell you what we've done. So we run a PGDM, which is the General Management Postgraduate Diploma in Management program. And I always say that even that program has been digitally transformed. Okay, so in the sense that we have, so anybody who does the management program at Praxis has to learn Python, has to learn Tableau. So when he goes for summer, he uses Tableau while the others use Excel. So I mean, and fundamentals of data science and working with data. I think there is this concept of the citizen data scientist. So in an organization, everybody has to be, like people used to say that everybody in an organization has to be a marketing person, right? Including your production guy, because there's a customer for whom you are producing. I think in the same way, everybody has to be able to look at his or her local ecosystem data and do certain operations and make sense of it. You can't go back to your central data science team and do that every time. They will be solving long-term complex problems. But you need to be what I call data fluent. Data literate is not enough. You have to be data fluent, and your company has to engineer the data, make those pipelines so that the data is available for you. So even if you're with HR, a lot of people say, I've joined HR because I didn't like math, or I didn't, but today there is HR analytics. So where should you go to recruit? How do you retain people? It's all data now. So I think I say that every professional eventually is going to be a data professional, if you ask me. Whatever you do, it's going to be around data. So completely agree with the person who asked the question.
It's a great question, Divyajyoti, and I think I totally agree with what you guys have just mentioned. Now, considering we have established this entire fact that data science skill is going to be the key for businesses to run sufficiently or smoothly in this new normal, and will be integrated in marketing, HR, all the departments. Sudipta, how can one leverage this situation and build a career in this field, in this dynamic, thriving domain?
Sure. So what we have seen is that usually there are multiple routes or multiple channels by which you can build your career. Usually the first port of call is that when you finish your engineering or finish your core graduation and you join an organization, you get a chance to reskill yourself or upskill yourself, and then either you have upskilled yourself or you have gotten on the job training. You get an exposure to this field of data and analytics, and if you like doing it, then you continue to do that. And many of the data scientists I meet today pretty much started their career just like that, because they got an opportunity and they grabbed it and did that. So that is one. The second thing is that a lot of institutes are now very specialized and focused in terms of providing analytics as a discipline. Data and analytics is a discipline, and hence gone are those days when I graduated. We did not have anything called data and analytics. Now you have got specialized programs, and that is very tailored towards doing both the data engineering and the data sciences. And these programs and courses help to jumpstart and give you the foundation, the necessary background needed in order to then build a career on that, right? So that is clearly the the way forward. Absolutely. The third thing which I have seen in terms of building the career is that uh, there needs to be an element of curiosity and an element of hunger to learn something new. Why I say this is because even if you have done a formal education or you have completed something, this field is very new and extremely changing. What you learned yesterday uh, is not going to be relevant anymore today, and you may have to pick up something else tomorrow. People who have the necessary acumen and the capability and the maturity to constantly learn new things are the ones who are going to succeed. So what is not really important is what is the body of knowledge you have. That is not really important. What is more important is that how can you add an additional body of knowledge in a short span of time in the future to keep or make yourself or to remain relevant in this space. So that's where I would say, that's the third area, third way, because if you are very curious, you want to learn new things, you automatically will be, getting into the space because it is such a wide space and a diversified space, and you will be able to work on that. And then I would say there is a fourth, dimension to it, and that dimension is about the fact that there would be, and I will draw it upon from the fact that now we are talking about citizen data scientists. So basically, what is happening is that uh, there are products and solutions which are coming into the market where there is embedded analytics in the solution itself. So, for example, you may not have to know exactly how a convolutional network works. You may be able to pick it and then tweak it and then use it. So it is almost like you have to understand the basics anyways, but you may not have to write a lot of programming and do a lot of programming yourself, because all of that is coming as a pre-packaged solution. Now, what is very critical is that you understand the limitations and you understand the benefits of using such an approach. And that could be a very good way to jumpstart, because you are then leveraging on some of the tools which are getting created, because even the owners of the tools or the software solution providers, they are also looking at it as a very expanding market, and they want that while you have purists who can build everything from scratch, you also need a little more generalists who can leverage the tools and the technology to build something maybe quick and dirty to start with, rather than not being able to do at all. So keep a lookout on those areas, and you can then really create a career for yourself. But I think if I can just summarize with just one word, which is very important, and I think that word is the ability to learn. So curiosity and ability to learn are the two important things, and I think the rest of it will always be, a matter of detail.
Correct. Curiosity to learn and the ability to learn is probably the key to data science right now, I think. Uh, Professor, same question goes with you. Being an educator, what sort of opportunities do you see individuals can leverage right now to build a career in this field?
Yeah, I think that very well summarized by Sudipto as usual. There are several, ways to acquire these skills and all that. But I think first of all, I want to excite people up a little about the career itself, of data science. Because, I can give you 20 reasons why you should go for it, but let me give you maybe three or four or five. So one is, I think, that what we've discussed, the gap gives you a huge opportunity, the supply demand gap. People are looking for data scientists. So I know that, a few years back, when you go to Seattle, on the left, there was this huge hoarding of Walmart that if you call yourself a data scientist, please turn left, because they needed so many. Okay. And so, and that has not changed. I mean, if anything, I think the appetite has just gone up. So why? So I always say, irrespective of what's happening to the economy, if you have the right skills, you have a job. And this is the right skill. So that is number one. Number two, I think it's also not just a safe bet. I think it's also an exciting bet. And Shrudipto will, totally support me that, every problem is unique. Every solution is different. Every time you're working on real problems, you're solving them, there is an excitement. It's like when you were preparing for your JEE and you could solve a problem, you got excited. I mean, you relive that. So there's nothing mundane or routine. And for people who want excitement in life, sometimes also a little bit of tension and challenge, I think it's a great career. And you work across sectors. I mean, this skill is such a transferable skill that you're not stuck to a particular sector. You can go anywhere and work, and there will be a demand for it. Third is the growth is fast. I think today, if somebody has 5 years of experience in data science, is considered a veteran because it's such a nascent field. Whereas if you want to be called, I used to work with Tata Steel. Unless you had worked for 25 years in steel, you were never called a veteran. You were still a junior. But today, 5 years experience means, oh my God, this guy knows so much, right? So it's a good time to join this field because 10 years later, again, there'll be enough 5 years and 10 years experienced people. So, it will become just like another field, right? And another thing which I find very good about this and why I think you should build careers here is because you're making an impact. You can build new business models. You can improve. For example, if you're working in healthcare or agri or energy, you can actually make an impact to humanity. Today, data science played a huge role in COVID in predicting. I mean, it's up to us to listen to those predictions or not. That's a separate issue. But predictions were there. There was a lot of AI and data science that was used as much as the biosciences, right? In this. So I think these are, and so you command respect, and you're doing something tough, so you get money, right? And you grow fast, and you make a difference. So if you put all that together, I think it's a fantastic career. If you feel that you like numbers, you are comfortable with technology, at least you're not technoplegic, that you don't like technology, and if you like solving problems, I think it's a great career. And I will go back to what I discussed earlier, that at a time when people were losing jobs and there was so much uncertainty in the first wave, nobody knew what's going to happen. We did not have not a single offer got revoked, whereas there was wide revocation of offers in different other fields. Okay, and so it's a recession-proof kind of a career. Sometimes I think if there is more stress on business and profits, I think the doctors are required even more, and here the doctors are the data scientists, right? So in that sense, I think this is an opportunity which they need to leverage, and I don't think I can add anything to what Shudipto said about how to go about doing it. I think you covered everything, but I just want everybody here to be excited that if you are thinking about it, I think make the decision now and you know get into action rather than saying, okay, let me look at another 6 months or 1 year, because earlier you get into it, better it is for you.
Totally. Very, very nicely mentioned, Professor. If this is the right time, if anybody wants to build a career in this field, I think before it gets too late, this is the right time to delve into it. We will. I have seen some interesting questions that are coming up. We will take a few before I delve into the other ones. Uh, Pragati is asking, what are the challenges and pros for newly appointed data scientists in the post-COVID scenario in comparison to the time when everything was normal?
Right. So I would say that some challenges are not specific to data scientists. So some challenges are related to the fact that when you come and join an organization as a new person, you may not have the flexibility or the ability to meet people in an office setting. So you have to manage it through a remote environment. Sometimes it can be a little difficult because you're still building relationships and you're trying to understand the organization, etc. But that is not only related to data scientists or data science as a profession. Any profession would face the same challenge. Um, uh, the other thing I would say, when you're joining an organization, the challenge which everybody faces, and that is very relevant from a data science perspective, is that the hype precedes the reality. So there is a lot of hype, as in everybody would have read something in the newspapers or would have attended 2 webinars or would have done some courses, and they get a very rosy picture about what data analytics can do, and it will completely something magical happens, right? Something from the black box will come and teach you and tell you which you never knew for ages. So somewhere separating the hype from the reality is very critical, because and I also do that a lot of times when I interact with a lot of my own customers and clients, is that nothing magical will happen overnight. You still have to do the hard work of looking at the data, analyzing the data, coming to terms. Even building the accurate model itself takes a lot of time and all of that, right? So that is usually one of the challenges, typically for organizations who are just started on the journey, not very mature. This problem would not be there for very mature organizations, because they will understand that, you know, you cannot just expect miracles to happen just because you got a data scientist in an organization. The third challenge I foresee is the fact that data analytics is 80 to 85% data and only 15% analytics. Why I say that is, you almost visualize it like the iceberg. Whatever is below the surface, which is not visible, is the data, and that's where the most of the hard work comes in terms of analyzing, in terms of putting it, collating it, and everything, right? And that is not considered very glamorous, or that is or either not glamorous, or there are a lot of risks associated with it, or you do not understand and get it right, and if you don't get it right, all your models, etc., will not be the best ones, right? So the risk is usually underestimating the challenges around the data, right? The usual risk is that, oh, you give me some data, I'll build something quickly for you. It is not about that. It is about fully understanding the nuances, the differences, and everything, because once you have built something and that is not relevant for the business or not giving enough insights, you quickly lose the, the interest, and that is the worst thing to happen, because you do not want people to lose interest in a subject which has got so much of potential. um, Coming to the other side, other part of the question, where what are the benefits? I think a lot of benefits Professor mentioned in terms of it being an exciting field and a growing field and all that. I will add a few more. The first one is that you get to work with the decision makers. You may be the junior most person in the organization, but you get to work with the decision makers. Now, the decision makers could be CXOs, could be department heads, could be senior executives, because analytics will be used by people who take decisions. If analytics is not being used by people who take decisions, then it's a failure anyways, right? So by definition, if you are doing a reasonable enough job, you are constantly talking to the top brass of an organization, whether as a consultant or whether as an employee of an organization, whatever it is, right? And that itself is a great opportunity to learn, because you are understanding the point of view from somebody who has been in that business for so many years and is so much more experienced, and that's a fantastic learning opportunity in my opinion, right? So that is like something where you will not get that in any. You may still get it, but it will take some time. In this field, you will get it almost very, very quickly, right? That's one. The second thing on the benefit side is that, and I think Professor touched about it, briefly, is that you can cross leverage your learning across the enterprise. If I have built, a model which works well for one department, I can easily transfer it to another department, a third department, a fourth department, right? This ability to see the commonality across different parts of the business, the ability to connect the dots between different parts of the business, which are may not be exactly related to each other. Only a data scientist with his or her ability to look at the data will be able to provide. And that in turn makes you very, very valuable in the organization, because then you are suddenly working for sales and marketing, finance, HR, this, that, everything, because everything is very connected. We have only created those artificial silos, right? um, uh, Data analytics kind of breaks those silos. So for example, if I'm doing financial analytics, suddenly I see cost or employee cost as a component, and I quickly delve into your HR analytics. Suddenly I see sales as another driver, I quickly get into sales and marketing analytics, right? So that way, because the data is all seamless, it is anyways coming from my ERP system, it's a single source for all the enterprise. I have a much better ability to connect all the disparate or different parts of the business into one piece. And that is a very, very important factor, because most of the organizations today struggle because they have got those silos. In fact, a huge amount of effort organizations themselves spend in terms of breaking these silos and making them more process oriented, right, or making them more customer focused, or more agile and all that. And you are going to be a very important cog in the wheel for doing that. So you will actually play a very strategic role, even if you do not get to meet the CEOs and the CXOs. Given the fact that you have a much wider visibility of the data, you will become very, very critical and important for the organization. So those are the upsides of being of being in this profession.
Correct, Professor. You want to add something to this?
Just one thing that, let me tell you, and again, I think Sudipto will agree, that this was Pragati, right? The question,
Yes.
the person who asked the question, yeah. So, there is a lot, data science already there is a demand, but there's a much stronger demand for women in these fields, women in tech, women in STEM, because I think there's an imbalance. So we get recruiters who say that, if you had more women in your batch, we would have recruited more, because we have to, and I think it's very important, because I think one of the favorite topics of Shudipta, but we are not discussing it today, is ethics in AI. And when you're building models in AI, we need diverse people to build those models. So there is, we eliminate bias, and one of the biggest biases is gender bias, right? And over and above that, we need diversity. So in fact, we have instituted a scholarship. So any woman who gets into our program immediately gets a scholarship just by qualifying for the program. So I think you will have a lot of opportunities, and there will be. So you should not only join this, tell your friends also. For women, I think it's a great career, and they can add a lot of value, because they bring a different way of looking at problems, and so. But otherwise, I think Shudipto covered the whole pros and cons part really well. He knows more because he actually handles people when they join, and he sees them work, right? So he's the right guy
On
to
the
answer that.
diversity piece, I will just add one more important point here. So whenever we talk about the world of data science, we sometimes only look at the hard data, as in I call it a hard data and the soft data. The hard data is where what you are capturing, you are getting it from the ERP. These are your sales numbers, whatever. The soft data is actually the behavioral data, is about the opinions of people, is about the impression of people who are either using the data and analytics, or they are impacted by the data and analytics programs, right? And these usually come from the way of surveys, and from the by way of looking at their how they're using it. And in any organization, if you do not give the right importance to the soft data part of it, which requires a little bit of a different holistic thinking, and that's where the diversity of the skill is so important, then your programs will not be able to reach a scale and size at an enterprise level. Because one of the biggest problems which organizations face is the adoption of analytics. You may build a very sophisticated model, you can build a great dashboard, but if people do not use it, then this is of no benefit. And people are not like machines, and they will behave in a logical manner. In fact, there's enough and more research which has been done. Behavioral economics is the tells us that human beings do not behave rationally. They behave irrationally, but in a very predictable manner, right? So the ability to understand what is different about people using this requires the diversity of skills in the data science space, right? And hence, it is one aspect which should not be underestimated, cannot be underestimated. It will only become more important going forward.
Correct. I can't agree more. There's a very interesting question that has come from Prashant. He's a professor in mechanical engineer, engineering, and he's passionate about data science. He is asking if it is the right time to switch into this new profession at the age of 41. So, Professor, please, if you would like to enlighten him on this.
Okay, yeah. So I can tell you about our program. I mean, we have people who are fresh from college right up to people who have 18, 20 years of experience, which is where you fit. So whether you would like to switch professions and teach, because again, I'm telling you, there's a dearth of good faculty, because people haven't, it takes time to become experienced to be a good designer and deliverer, so to speak. Right, so you already have experience, so you want to switch to data science. I think it's a great idea. If you want to learn data science and then switch, you should just train yourself and and get into it. So I would say that, you're it's not that you're throwing away what you have learned. The softer part of the fact that you are a professor of mechanical. I'm a student of mechanical engineering, so not a prof, obviously. You see, the way you think, the analytical skills are all there, and we use math, and all the mech engineering has a lot of math. In fact, it had too much math for me to handle, actually. So I think that part is there, and so I think it's a great idea.
I will just add one more. Yeah,
Yeah, sure.
I will just add. Sorry, did I interrupt you? You can finish and
No,
then I
no,
can.
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah.
So I will just add one more thing because you mentioned mechanical engineering. I would say that industrial analytics or analytics in industrial manufacturing organizations hinge a lot on your understanding of the way the operations of the business runs. So,
Yeah.
for example, I'll give a very simple example. For example, if you are looking at the predictive maintenance of a boiler, if you are a mechanical engineer, I can tell you it will be 10 times simpler for you to build a model which will be able to predict when the boiler is going to fail, depending on a set of pressure, temperature, and pH and other considerations. Because somebody who doesn't understand or not even have seen how a boiler looks like, it is a very abstract concept in their mind. It will be extremely difficult for them to even conceptualize and build a model, which is why uh, the understanding people who can visualize and can understand and relate to the problem in a very intimate way are probably one of the best data scientists, and hence this also requires a lot of cross fertilization of your experience in some of the core functions to bring it into the field of data science. And that is one of the reasons when we talk, and when I talk to some of my clients, etc., I tell them that you don't have to hire anybody from outside. Please retrain your people who have been working in some of your line functions, because they have so much of knowledge about the function itself that it will more than compensate for their lack of mathematical skills, and they can still be very good data scientists in your organization.
Totally. Totally. Very nicely explained. I hope it has helped Prashant in understanding or giving him enough confidence to, looking for a change or, pursue a different career at this age. This actually urges me to ask a very critical question, Sudipta. What one needs to do to acquire these hot or advanced data science skills?
I think indirectly we may have touched upon this subject, and there are lots of ways of doing it. The good part is that you now have a lot of resources at your disposal, and you don't have to look at the very classical way of learning it, either from a school or any, although you can do that anyways, and we are talking about it, but you can also learn it from a number of resources available widely. They are open source. Many of them are available. Even the platforms are available for you to try out your programs. It doesn't cost you any money because they are all available free of cost. There are specific online courses available to you which are very highly recognized. So you don't have to always be under the constraint that you have to do a session for a period of time. You can actually be sitting in a beach and take 2 hours out and do a certification from there. So it's hugely flexible now, and the quality of that content is also increasing significantly by leaps and bounds. And I would say that it's only our interest which is probably the constraint. And I just feel very, I get fascinated by the different types of ways by which you can educate and learn yourself, and learn. And also there is another thing. Say if you are working in an organization, many organizations are actually investing in upskilling their people, and they realize that their workforce for the future would look very different from the workforce which they have today, and it will be impossible for them to just completely say that, well, I'm going to ease out these people and I'm going to hire a new set of people. I don't think it is going to be very practical. So they are investing in training their people, uh, either classroom trainings or on the job trainings or online trainings or a combination of everything. So and they're doing tie-ups with educational institutions to do that. So that is another very important kind of initiative which can be leveraged fully to learn on this subject, especially for the ones who are already working in an organization.
Correct. Correct. Professor, we would like to know your view too. What do you think individuals can do to, equip themselves with these trending skills of the industry?
Yeah, I think that I agree with Sudipta, because there is a variety of ways in which you can do that. But I feel that what our experience has been that you could probably have a financial or a personal constraint where you may not be able to, let's say if you're working, you may not be able to leave your job. I'm of course talking of organizations who are not skilling, and sometimes even when they're training people, you may not be the chosen one, right? I mean, so then again there is an issue, depends on what you're doing there. So if you have those kind of constraints, I think it makes sense to do something part-time, because it's better than not doing anything, right? You will learn something, you will, and again, depends on how self-disciplined you are to be able to do a full-time job and yet spare some hours and learn on your own. Uh, but I think if you don't have these constraints, I think a full-time program makes a lot of sense, because what we have seen is that this subject is becoming increasingly complex, right? And there are several advantages to a full-time program. One is you're clear in your mind and space, that you don't have a job, you don't have targets to chase, you don't have deadlines to meet. I mean, if a PwC consultant who's a good, especially a good consultant, would have so much work. I also worked there briefly. I don't think you'll have the mental space to say, okay, now I want to learn data science, right? Okay, unless PwC trains him, when they'll give him time to do that, right? Or him or her. So that's one. The second is that there is a structure. Most of us are not self-motivated. Let's face it. I always say that Praxis runs its programs because people don't have the discipline and the self-motivation, but that's a fact. So if you have a structured program with assignments and deadlines and attendance and all of that, you are kind of pushed to learn. And then you have the peer group, you have the alumni network, and you have the professors and mentors and capstone projects and all of that. So there is a path that has been designed by people who understand what this learning should look like. So it's a luxury today for some to take time off and do it, but that's why and there are so many options here also. You could do a 2-year MTech, you could do an MS abroad, you could do a 9-month program that we have, which is Praxis. You could there are so many options. But what I feel, and we have some people coming from who are working, saying that we just want to get back to a campus. We are missing it for the last 4 5 years. So it's a great time to hang out again and play some basketball while you learn, right? So yeah, so I think that full-time learning has its solid benefits there, unless you can't. And I would add another thing. Try it out online sometimes. See whether you like what it is. See whether it's capturing your interest and you think you want to do this for the rest of your life, before you take the final step. And I will add one more word to the interest thing that Sudipto said. I think slowly I'm realizing that courage has a big part to play in it. When you are getting older, it requires a lot of courage to say that I want to change and I want to learn something new. Because if somebody asks me to learn a new language today, it will require courage on my part to say, okay, fine, I'll become a student again and learn something new. So I think that if you have that, there are ways to learn it. You can acquire these skills, and now there are more options. There is the ecosystem is very helpful.
Brilliantly said, Professor and Sudipta both. I think it gives a lot of understanding for our audience to how to take this opportunity and build a career, despite they are working or aspiring students who would like to build a career. I have an interesting question coming from Divyansh. With such dynamism in roles, isn't it a possibility that sooner every role will become obsolete, given machines with machine learning and AI will be able to make organizational decisions? The human aspect of the experience will no longer become credible or trustworthy. So, Sudipta, please
Yeah, yeah.
help
No, no,
us.
absolutely. I think this is a question which hovers in everybody's head nowadays. But I can tell you that I think we are, at least a few decades away from that situation. I don't think we are at a stage where we have reached that singularity that AI is as good as a human being and all that, right? So there could be speculations and all that, but I'm going to say that what is practical for us? What is practical for us is that let us look at all these solutions as tools, nothing but tools, right? When computer first came in, people were very scared that the jobs will be lost, and then it is going to be replaced by humans, will be replaced by computers. But look what happened, because computers were introduced in our country. We are now one of the largest and most credible, I would say, nation providing IT related services, and so hence it has only created jobs for us, right? So we do not know, and we sometimes fear the unknown because we do not know what it is. But I'm going to tell you that there are some types of professions, or I would say disciplines, which have come across just because there is data and analytics and AI. And give you a few examples. Number one is the fact that if you are doing a machine learning based model, you need a huge amount of labeling of the data. Now there are organizations whose full-time job is to label the data, and it may be a low-end piece of work, very mundane piece of work, but it's still giving jobs to people, right? So that is one. Second is that when you look at, say, building a model, you have to understand that whether the model is behaving the right way. So there has to be somebody who can audit the model and somebody who can provide an assurance that it is working the right way. Now this particular discipline was not there before. That somebody needs to look at the model, that whether the model is behaving the right way or not. We always, when you write a statistical model, which is a simple mathematical equation, you don't have to get somebody to verify whether that logic or that mathematical function is working, because it is all very black and white. But not so in the case of a deep learning based model, because there is no mathematical equation available to you. So that has created a new discipline. Then let us talk about the bias, the data bias, which Professor talked about in the previous answer. Now, earlier, it is a deterministic model. So whatever, there will be a transformation and there will be an output. So that is how it happens. Now it has all been reversed. You have the output. The output is not the output in a data sense. The output is actually your model. Input is your data and output is your model. As opposed to, you had the model in the middle where you had an input and an output, right? Now when output is your model, the model gets biased by the data, and that is where you need to look at another discipline, which then says, okay, is my data biased, is it fair, is it all that, all these ethical considerations, all of that. Now you have got AI ethics officer as a role, a role in organization. You have heard these cases of Google and all that, where there was a lot of controversy around somebody getting fired and all that, right? So I'm just saying that it is creating new roles for us which we could not have imagined. That is one aspect of it. The other aspect of it, I personally feel, is that humans and and machines or AI will complement each other. So so for example, if I cannot process millions of petabytes of information, I will need AI to do that. If I did not have AI or I did not have that algorithm, I possibly may not even have been able to even analyze that data. So it is not about humans replacing the machine. It is that if you did not have that tool, you could not have even done that analysis in the first place. It would have been a black box, or it would have been a completely an unknown for you, right?
Correct.
On the other hand, once you have done that analysis and you have understood that, that helps you to further reinforce what the tool can do, which means that you are learning something from the algorithm and you are putting it back into the algorithm to make it even better. So there is a loop which is working to make both humans ability and the machine's ability better, and this is the virtuous cycle which will make it better and better. The virtuous cycle will not be possible if you take the human out of the equation.
Correct.
So you would need human being at all costs. Now, what is going to change? What is going to change is that something which is very repetitive. What is going to change is something which you have to do from your rote or from your memory, because a machine's memory is far better than a human memory, right? So you have to then be very clear in your understanding that I am adding value not by reproducing some information from point A to point B, or doing a piece of work which is like an automaton. I have to add value by being creative. I have to add value by being relevant, and hence I need to reskill myself to stay relevant, right? So I would kind of nuance it like this: that new jobs will be created, some jobs will become obsolete, and hence we will have to reskill to take advantage. I see it more as an opportunity. For example, if you are a chartered accountant and all you are doing at the end of the month is reconciliation of invoices, is that the kind of work you would like to do going forward? Or you would like an AI bot to do the reconciliation for you so that you can do some value added stuff because you are a chartered accountant at the end of the day, right? So we all have to think whether we are doing the job what humans are supposed to do in the first place. And if the bots are forcing us to leave some of the jobs which are not meant for us anyways, it is probably a better thing for us to do.
Correct. Professor, please share your view on this.
No, I think very well covered. I think I don't have much to add, but I just feel that the humans will continue to invent more and more things that they will do. Like when we started with computers, it started an industry in India. You take the IT industry out, I think India is in trouble, right? So similarly, I think there will be more and more. So this is a great question. I mean, we can only predict what may happen, try to predict what may happen. We'll have to see, actually. But no point worrying about it. Just reskill yourself. So be the guy who's designing the thing rather than the one who's the victim of it. I mean, right.
Totally. That's the smart way of building the career, maybe. So, one more question that has come up. I would like to you guys your opinion. In the last decade, software engineering, that is building software, has been an undisputed luxury professional domain due to the huge demand of development professionals. But as there is incoming data revolution in the world and the source of data being the oil, building top-notch software machineries, is it possible that data scientists could dethrone software developers as the most prized profession due to the expertise in the data game?
So I don't
Very
see it as
interesting.
a competition. I don't see
Yeah.
it as a competition. At the end of the day, it is like if you do not have the software which captures and generates the data, you will not have a data scientist working on the data. So they live in a very symbiotic environment. And it is not really about who is becoming one top or who is becoming bottom and all that. I think both will have a role to play, and a very important role to play in the future. And both will have it will depend on the context. So for example, for certain sectors which are more into the product development or into R&D, building new things, they will need new developers, or they will need to continue to focus on building new products and new solutions. On the other hand, organizations who are they want to leverage their existing data and then innovate, they will continue to focus on it, because that is not building new products. New software products may not be their core competency for that matter. So it will be very, very contextual. What is the focus of an organization, and depending on the context, the relevant, the relative importance of these skills will be there. But I think it is going to coexist, and I wouldn't say one is better or one will be higher than the other.
Correct, correct. Chanpreet, what do you think, Professor?
Yeah,
What? Yeah.
I think absolutely agree. Yeah, I don't think I need to add anything to this. Yeah.
I also think both will coexist. I don't think any one of the profession is going to take over the another one. Okay, this brings me to my last question, which is very critical for the audiences to understand.
Mhm.
Professor, please guide us how a Praxis program can help individuals help in this data science journey or help them build their career.
Okay. All right. So this is okay. Uh, where do I start? I think it's there are 3 or 4 things that we do well. I mean, as I said, we started in 2011. We have a lot of experience. We've seen the whole field evolve, and we have a very large network of alumni globally doing very, very well, and they keep feeding us back also how to change. And we've been very agile. We have to be right in this kind of a field. So I think if I have to uh, describe our overarching objective, to put it in one sentence, is to enable our students get their first job in data science and equip them to perform well in that job. Right. So I think that's so everything we do, from student selection to curriculum design to delivery to assessment to the capstone project to our famed campus placement program, everything is geared towards achieving that objective. So whatever changes happen in the environment, as long as we keep that intent honest, I think we will do things that are required to be done to make that happen. And I think that, if you look at, we started in 2011, we were one of the first. All the big brands have come in because they have to. I mean, in the sense that they understand the need, and yet we have maintained our position. We are still ranked 2 in the country, and the first ranked program is an IIT, ISI, IIM program. So, as I always say, among the mortals, we are the first, because that's like a trinity, right? I mean, so the moment these kind of institutes get together, I mean, they have to be one, ranked one. I just hope others don't start doing that. So, in this kind of a competitive environment, if you can, retain that position, so obviously we're doing some things good. And I think the other thing which I feel we do well is that we create an ecosystem where people want to learn, and as Sudipta was saying, learning. So we want people to take away 2 things. In addition to all the technologies and techniques, one is the ability to think, and the other is the ability to learn. And one of our alumni, he made that comment when he was asked after his. I think he's in Microsoft now, and he said that this was the first institute that rewarded me for thinking. But every assessment, I was rewarded for thinking. So I think in that sense, it's a good community. It's a very happy community. People enjoy learning. It's very rigorous. It's very comprehensive, and it's very rewarding for all of us, at least. And the outcome that we love is the way the alumni is doing well, and they are our ambassadors anyway. So I think people can get in touch with us. We can explain what we do. I think 9 months is a good period. I mean, it's not very long. It's not 2 years. So even if you take time off your job, it's a very tight program. And our confidence has increased a lot because of how we managed to work during the COVID period, both in terms of delivery and the placements. So it gives us a lot of confidence in the data science field as such, that it can, it can cross that hurdle also. With so much of economic pain that we went through, it still stood out and gave jobs. And the second is that companies still came to us to recruit, and the students did brilliantly. They learned well. They cracked the interviews. So I think I think that's what it is. And there are other institutes as well. I mean, some very big names all of them doing a good job. We are one of them, I think, and we're happy to answer questions if they want to get in touch with us. Right. So yeah, I just wanted to add two things. Yeah, very quickly. One is I mentioned very briefly that women in tech scholarship that we have. So we really want a lot of women to apply to us. This year already we are getting more apps, but we want more and more. And I think it's good for data science. It's good for our economy. It's good for the country, good for the world actually. If more women get into this. The second is for this batch particularly, we are allowing a dual learning mode. So for some reason or constraint, if you can't come to our Kolkata or Bangalore campuses, you can log on from home and do the entire program. It's still a full-time program, but now that we know that we can deliver online and learning can happen, people can have the flexibility of learning from home. But we would still advise very strongly that if you can come to the campuses, and I hope after the second wave we can do physical classes, there is no substitute for that. But if you can't, then that's the next best thing. So yeah, I think that's all I want to say about the program.
I think these are brilliant initiatives, Professor, especially the women in tech, as well as the hybrid dual model, the learning model that you guys are. I think this is going to give a lot of opportunities for aspirants or the professionals that are looking to change can to come to this industry, this thriving industry. I think this is all from my side, but we have many questions that are popping up, and I would really, if all good, then I will take them up, a few of them maybe.
Yeah, I'm good. Sudipta, are you good for a couple of more questions?
Yeah, I can take a couple of questions.
Yeah.
That's great. So there's one common thing that I keep checking out in the questions is people asking about freshers in data science. So I'll read out one question. I think that's going to answer many of them. How can a fresher grab a job in data science in product-based companies, since majority of the companies require work experience for all data science job nowadays?
Can I take
So
that? I mean, Sudipta, just
please.
one part, and then
Yeah,
you can come. So,
yeah.
if you are fresh from a college which does not have a data science curriculum, that is true. But we get freshers, and I'm sure other institutes as well get. So, if you get yourself trained in a specialized program, see, there is something called a campus placement program, right? So, the companies come and they know that none of the people here have previous experience in data science. And we have product companies coming in as well, right? So, either you come from an organization. So now I think data science is moving into undergrad also, I think, in a big way, right, Sudipto? So so there will be 2 years 3 years later there will be people who would have actually learned a lot in this and would and then they could get jobs. Right now I think they need a top up. So if they do that top up and they do it in an institute which actually companies come to recruit with the knowledge that people here do not have previous experience. So that means they've figured it out. They know how to train you there, and so that system is in place. So you can get jobs. So if there anything you would want to say?
No, you just answered it absolutely. And if you do not get an opportunity to do a top up in a formal way, you can still do some online courses, and you can still learn those skills and show those skills. In fact, I also go to the campuses for recruitment for freshers, and we typically do not look at what they know from a data science perspective. We try and understand if they have the right attitude and aptitude to learn it in a short span of time, and that is usually most of the reputed organizations who have a lot of belief in their hiring from the campus perspective. They do. I know many such organizations also. So there will be opportunities to get into such organizations, even if you do not have a prior experience in the field of data science. You can always do a top up, as Professor said, with a specific, dedicated, very sharp program, or you can build those skills yourself through online, or when you are appearing for such kind of interviews, etc., focus more on your ability to learn, focus more on your past experience of how you have kind of done this in the past and did well in the past. Show a little more curiosity in terms of what the organization wants to do, and I'm sure you will be able to, impress in your interviews.
Shudipta, what tends to happen, and this is what our students tell us because they try this, is that when you do some online thing and then you apply, the number of applications per job is so high that the shortcut the organization takes, and every organization is not as let's say evolved as, let's say, a PwC, right? I mean, so they are looking for that, their shortcut is, let me take a guy who's done it for 2 years. Yeah, I don't want to go through this whole thing, and then how do I shortlist? So unless you come to the interview, you don't get the opportunity to kind of exhibit your skills. That is where a campus placement program makes a lot of difference, because the company is going to come. You're going to be, if you're good, you can talk to them, right? So that's where it is actually now. Yeah, unless you get into hackathons and all that, you get a Kaggle rank. That there is some place where you have to demonstrate that ability. I think that is very important.
Correct. And also, like Shudipta said before, the curiosity to learn and the ability to learn is always the key to get into this field.
Totally.
We will take one more question before we wrap up the session. This is from Prashant. He's asking, is it mandatory to have a certification course to get hired, particularly when one is looking for a career transition?
I won't say, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out, I mean, how would you approach the organization where you want to get hired in a different role, and what would be your story? So as either Sudipta said, you even if you go do an online course, there will be a certification. So I think I'll go back to my last word. There has to be some demonstration of ability, especially if you're a senior person, for them to take you. And they're not going to take you because you want to join. Although that's very important. That's a necessary condition, but it's not a sufficient one, because a lot of people may want to join. But there has to be some demonstration of intent and ability. So if it's an online course, if you've got an online certification which is recognized and relevant, at least it's something. I mean, yeah. Sudipta, does that make sense? I mean,
Absolutely. And I would also say that, if you are already experienced in some domain, try to see if you can use your knowledge of your existing experience in a creative way, where you can make a very compelling argument that it is not a waste, it is going to be leveraged for my data science work. If you are able to do that, I think organizations will just lap you up.
Yeah. What's the better way to demonstrate your credibility than a certification, I think, right? So
yeah, I mean, it's one. It shows intent. But but there are so many certifications also, Seshajyoti. So everybody has a certification today. In fact, most of the people who join our program already have certifications. In fact, they use them for the interview. That this is my demonstration of intent, that I'm really serious about it. Because we always say that if you're really serious about the career, we can help you. So they said this is our demonstration because we've done some course. So I think also leveraging your experience and saying that this is how I can help you solve business problems in this domain, because I know the domain and I'm good at math. I think that helps a lot, especially for experienced people. Yeah.
correct. So on that note, we have come to an end of this discussion, but it was very insightful, not only for the attendees, for me coming from very different background, but to know about this field is extremely delight. And coming from two experts, one from the education space and one from the industry space, I'm sure this would give a lot of understanding to our attendees how to build a career and why to build it now, and why this is the right time to pick that up. So attendees, I think this is the end of the session. So if any of you guys would like to know more about the Praxis program, we would really request you guys to contact them, and they will be happy to, come up with a course that would be suitable for you guys. So thank you so much, Professor. Thank you, Sudipta, once again. It was a great discussion.
Thank you very much.
Thanks everybody, and please look at data science as a career. Doesn't matter where you go and get the skills from, but I think we need more of you. Yeah, in this domain. Yeah. So
It is our for sure. Okay, thank you so much, Professor. Thank you, Sudipta, once again. It was great to have you guys here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thanks, Sudipto. Thanks for it.
Thank you.